Did you know you can make the fight with Millennia a piece of cake by acquiring this specific item in the realm of shadow? When you first arrive in the graveside plain, you will find a massive furnace golem patrolling the open field. Defeating this early enemy rewards you with the deflecting head tier. This item alters the mechanics of your defense. For years, players have compared Millennia to a boss from Sekiro. Her speed and the continuous overwhelming strikes of her waterfowl dance makes dodging incredibly difficult. The deflecting hard tier solves this problem directly. When mixed into your flask of wondrous physic, it grants the ability to perform spontaneous guards. By tapping the block button just before her sword connects, you completely negate her damage. Instead of running away, you can stand your ground. You can deflect her rapid attacks perfectly and respond with heavy guard counters. This breaks her posture and turns her greatest strength against her, allowing you to control the pace of the battle entirely. Did you know if you are having a hard time dealing with those flame chariots, you can actually destroy them in a single strike? These heavy metal machines patrol enemy camps, using fire and immense weight to crush anyone in front of them. Fighting them face to face is often dangerous. However, their design contains a critical vulnerability. Every flame chariot has an open exhaust chimney on its top. If you find a high cliff, a wall, or a ledge situated above their patrol path, you can use the elevation to your advantage. By jumping off the high ground and landing directly on top of the chariot, you can execute a plunging attack. This triggers a highly unique critical animation where your character drives their weapon straight down the internal furnace. This single motion instantly destroys this machine from inside out. It is a quiet and highly effective way to bypass their heavy frontal armor completely. There is actually a trick weapon hidden in Elden Ring. While it is technically classified as a great shield, it is secretly designed to function as a handheld cannon. This is the One-Eyed Shield. You can acquire it by defeating Chief Guardian Arganthy at the Guardian's garrison, located high in the mountaintops of the Giants. The shield is carved from heavy white stone. It depicts the face of a malformed one-eyed god. According to the history of the land between, this evil deity was once worshipped by the fire giants before Queen Marika personally hunted and killed it. The secret mechanism is hidden inside the stone carving. The barrel of a firearm pokes directly through the open mouth of the dead god. By activating its unique skill, Flame Spit, you brace the shield defensively and launch a massive fireball that explodes on impact. When exploring the upper dining hall of the Volcano Manor, you are invaded by an inquisitor named Giza. Defeating him rewards you with Giza's Wheel. This weapon is an iron-bladed circular saw attached to a heavy staff. It serves as a direct homage to the Whirligig saw from Bloodborne. The connection between these two weapons goes beyond their visual design. It extends directly into their combat mechanics. Both weapons are built to deal continuous damage rather than single heavy strikes. In Bloodborne, the hunter can hold the weapon out, grinding the serrated blades to rapidly shred enemies. Elden Ring replicates this exact moveset. Giza's Wheel features a unique skill called Spinning Wheel. When activated, you hold the weapon forward and rev the blades, creating a continuous attack that rapidly triggers blood loss. The lore surrounding the weapon is equally deliberate. In Bloodborne, the Whirligig saw was used by a fanatical faction dedicated to violently purge a plague. The Volcano Manor operates with a similarity. They are a faction of tarnished who have turned against the Earth Tree, dedicating their lives to hunting their own kind. Inquisitor Giza serves as their executioner, using the wheel as an instrument of torture. In the Elden Ring community, few figures are as widely recognized as the player known as Let Me Solo Her. The battle against Millennia is widely considered the most difficult encounter in the game. When the game was first released, countless players spent days or even weeks unable to defeat her. During this period of widespread frustration, a unique summon sign began to appear on the stone floor just outside her arena. The player who arrived through this summon sign had a highly specific appearance. They wore absolutely no armor to protect themselves. Their only clothing was a simple loincloth, and their head was completely encased in a large ceramic jar. In their hands, they carried 2 katanas. Their names served as a direct instruction to the host. If the host stepped back toward the entrance, this player would walk forward and engage Malenia completely alone. They would flawlessly dodge every attack, including the devastating waterfowl dance, patiently dismantling the hardest boss in the game while the host watched in safety. This single player defeated Malenia thousands of times simply to help strangers progress. His consistent dedication turned him into a documented community legend. Eventually, the publisher of the game, Bandai Namco, officially recognized his actions by sending him a physical commemorative sword. What even is the Elden Ring? Despite the title of the game, the Elden Ring is not a piece of jewelry you can wear. It is a metaphysical construct. It is a cluster of great runes that dictates the fundamental laws of reality within the lands between. The ring was sent down from the cosmos by an outer god known as the Greater Will. It crashed into the world on a golden star that carried a creature called the Elden Beast. Over time, this cosmic beast became a living embodiment of the Elden Ring itself. To govern the world, the ring must be housed inside the body of a living god. Queen Marika serves as its current vessel. Because the ring controls the laws of nature, altering its shape fundamentally alters how the world operates. When Marika established her Golden Order, she removed a specific piece of the ring called the Rune of Death. By simply taking this single rune out of the equation, she eliminated the concept of natural death from the entire world. When Marika later raised her hammer and shattered the ring, she fractured the physical and spiritual laws of reality. This single act plunged the lands between into the ruined state you explore today. During the second phase of the fight with Malekith, the Black Blade, his attacks become incredibly fast, dealing damage that actively drains your maximum health over time. However, there is a hidden mechanic specifically designed to counter him. Deep within crumbling Farum Azula, you can be invaded by Recusant Bernal. Defeating him rewards you with a unique tool called the Blasphemous Claw. According to the lore, Ranni the Witch gave this stone slab to her brother, Praetor Rykard. It was meant to serve as a last resort, allowing him to challenge the Black Beast if he was ever hunted for his blasphemy. In gameplay, this item functions as a highly specialized parry tool. During the battle, there are specific moments where Malekith's black sword will briefly ignite with a bright golden yellow light before he strikes. If you activate the Blasphemous Claw just as that glowing blade swings towards you, you will emit a burst of red energy. This completely deflects his power. The parry staggers the beast heavily, interrupting his deadly combo and leaving him vulnerable to a massive counterattack. It is one of the very few instances in the game where an inventory item is used to directly alter the flow of a boss fight. When you explore the wasteland of Caelid, you find a massive creature named Gurang sitting inside the bestial sanctum. He is a beast clergyman who hungers endlessly for an item called Deathroot. This creature is not simply an ordinary merchant, he is actually Malekith, the Black Blade in disguise. Malekith is the shadow-bound beast of Queen Marika. His sacred duty was to guard the Rune of Death. However, during the Night of the Black Knives, a fragment of this power was stolen from him. The stolen fragment was used to assassinate Godwyn the Golden. The essence of death then spread through the roots of the Erd Tree, growing across the world as Deathroot. Filled with deep shame over his failure, Malekith bound the remaining Rune of Death directly into his own flesh, so it could never be taken again. He then adopted the name Gurang. He isolated himself in the sanctuary and recruited Tarnished to hunt down the Deathroot for him. His animalistic consumption of the roots is a desperate attempt to eat the stolen death and reverse his greatest mistake. The game quietly acknowledges his dual identity through its mechanics. If you feed Gurang every piece of Deathroot before traveling to Farum Azula, the dialogue of final confrontation with him changes. The boss fight begins with a unique dialogue. Malekith recognizes your character. His voice is filled with quiet sorrow as he realizes he must now kill the person who tried to help him fix his broken past. In previous games directed by Hidetaka Miyazaki, players were brought up to fear wooden chests. Many of them were hidden monsters known as mimics, waiting to grab and instantly kill anyone who carelessly opened them. When designing the Elden Ring, Miyazaki chose to remove mimics entirely. However, he did not make opening chests completely safe. Instead, he replaced the monster with a different kind of punishment designed specifically for a massive open world. This replacement is the transporter trap. When you open the chest, it releases a thick cloud of grey smoke that quickly ensnares your character. When the smoke clears, you are forcibly teleported across the map to an unknown and highly dangerous location. The most famous of these traps is found very early in the game, hidden beneath the dragon-burnt ruins in Limgrave. It teleports new underleveled players directly into the Celia Crystal Tunnel, deep within the rotting hostile landscape of Caelid. Instead of relying on the horrors of a typical monster, this trap weaponizes the sheer size of the map. It replaces the fear of instant death with the fear of being completely lost, trapped underground and very far from the safety of familiar locations. The release of the Shadow of the Erdtree expansion introduced a new, overwhelming threat in the form of promised consort Radahn. The sheer speed, aggression, and endless attack chains of this final boss left many players entirely stuck, unable to find an opening to strike. In response to this difficulty, a new community legend emerged, directly inspired by the legacy of Let Me Solo Her. This new player was named Let Me Tank Him. However, instead of relying on flawless dodging and wearing no armor, this player took the exact opposite approach. When summoned into another player's world, they arrived wearing the heaviest, thickest armor available in the game. They carried a colossal great shield and a long, thrusting weapon. Their strategy relied on a specific combat mechanic that allows you to keep your shield raised firmly in defense, while simultaneously attacking from behind it. By equipping items that constantly draw the enemy's attention, they force the towering demigod to focus his attacks entirely on them. They would simply stand their ground, absorbing devastating combinations of physical strikes and holy light without losing their stance. Like an immovable stone wall, they patiently chipped away at the boss's health while taking almost zero damage themselves. This unwavering defense provided a safe haven, allowing the struggling host to finally defeat the hardest encounter in the expansion. George R.R. Martin has not written a single new word for Elden Ring in nearly 8 years. While many players assumed the author was brought back to write the tragic story of the recent expansion, his contribution was actually completed entirely between 2016 and 2017. When development began, Hidetaka Miyazaki did not ask Martin for a traditional video game script. Instead, he asked for a mythos, or mythos, depending on where you're from. Both are correct. Mythos. Martin wrote a sprawling ancient history detailing the complex bloodlines of the gods and the foundational conflicts of the world. As the base game was being built, the developers realized this story was simply too vast. Miyazaki admitted that they effectively tore out the middle chapters of Martin's text. The dense lore regarding the Horn Scent, the original form of the Crucible, and Queen Marika's early betrayal was quietly set aside. These characters and events were not invented recently for an expansion. They have been sitting in a vault for nearly a decade. When you explore the Realm of Shadow, you are finally uncovering the massive chapters of the original story, which was developed by George R.R. Martin in his earlier days. When exploring the Realm of Shadow, the dark, fractured monument dominating the skyline is known as the Scadu Tree. Many players initially read this name and pronounce it exactly as it is spelt, oh no, sounding out the hard letters. However, this spelling is not a modern fantasy invention. The prefix is rooted directly in Old English. The word Scadu is the historical precursor to our modern English word for shade or shadow. Because of this linguistic origin, the landmark is meant to be spoken aloud simply as the Shadow Tree. When spoken by the characters living within the game, they pronounce it exactly this way. This naming convention is deliberate, as technically it is the literal dark reflection cast by the glowing Erd tree in the lands between. It shows that even the vocabulary of this world is designed as a puzzle for the player to uncover. In the lands between, the title of demigod, besides being a measure for physical strength or magical ability, is also tied to a strict political and biological classification. To be considered a demigod, an individual must belong directly to the family of Queen Marika the Eternal. This family is divided into 3 distinct lineages. The first is the Golden lineage. These children were born to Marika and her first husband, the warrior Godfrey. This bloodline includes Godwyn the Golden and the imprisoned Omen twins, Morgoth and Morg. The second group was not born divine. General Radahn, Praetor Rykard, and Lunar Princess Rani were the children of the Carian queen Rennala and a champion named Radagon. When Radagon left Rennala to travel to the capital and marry Marika, these 3 children became stepchildren to the queen. Through this political union, they were officially elevated to demigod status. The final lineage consists of the 2 prodigies, Malenia and Miquella. They were born directly to Marika and her second husband, Radagon. Because Marika and Radagon are secretly 2 halves of the exact same divine entity, their children were born afflicted with severe curses. Malenia rots continuously from the inside, while Miquella is trapped eternally in the body of a child. When Marika shattered the Elden Ring, her children claimed its massive fragments, known as Great Runes. The sudden rush of divine power twisted their ambitions. They waged a devastating civil war against each other, known as the Shattering. The war ended in a bitter stalemate, leaving the demigods waiting in their ruined domains until a Tarnished arrives to hunt them down. There is a specific mixture you can create for your flask of wondrous physic that temporarily removes all limitations on magic. It resolves around an item called the Cerulean Hidden Tear. To find this crystal tear, you must travel to the volcanic landscape of Mount Gilmir. Beneath the minor Erd tree in this region, an ulcerated tree spirit guards the roots. Defeating this chaotic creature rewards you with the tear. When you mix the Cerulean Hidden Tear into your flask and drink it, it completely eliminates the consumption of focus points for a brief period. For those few seconds, you possess infinite magical energy. Players quickly discovered how to weaponize this mechanic by combining it with a legendary sorcery called Comet Azure. This spell fires a continuous massive beam of blue cosmic energy. Normally, it drains your magic pool almost immediately. With the tear active, however, the beam can be held continuously. This combination is famously used against Morg, Lord of Blood. Because Morg slowly walks toward the player at the start of the battle, you can unleash an unending beam of energy that entirely depletes his health bar. He's often destroyed instantly, long before he ever has the chance to initiate his second phase or cast his infamous blood curse. It transforms a brutal duel into a quiet, overwhelming display of magical power. When you travel along the rotting crimson roads of Caelid, you will come across an abandoned carriage. Resting inside the chest on the back of this carriage is a colossal weapon known as the Great Sword. Despite its plain name, this weapon is a direct homage to the Dragon Slayer. This is the iconic sword wielded by Guts, the protagonist of the dark fantasy manga Berserk. The director of Elden Ring, Hidetaka Miyazaki, has drawn heavy inspiration from the late Kentaro Miura's artwork and storytelling for his entire career. The connection is made explicit in the item description. The game describes the Great Sword as a coarse iron lump that mows down foes by utilizing its incredible weight. This carefully mirrors the famous description of the blade in the manga, which states it was too big to be called a sword and was instead just a massive heap of raw iron. It requires immense physical strength to lift it. By finding and equipping it, players can quietly honor a legendary piece of dark fantasy fiction while wandering a world that was heavily shaped by its existence. While the base game holds many references to Kentaro Miura's work, the recent expansion introduces another encounter that serves as a direct homage. When exploring the Western Nameless Mausoleum in the Realm of Shadow, you will face an optional boss known as the Black Gull Knight. For fans of the dark fantasy manga Berserk, this enemy is immediately recognizable. He wields the Great Sword of Solitude, a massive blade with a brutalist design. He wears the armor of Solitude, crafted from dark iron with a jagged, heavy aesthetic that closely mirrors the iconic Berserker armor. The most definitive connection occurs when the knight creates distance during the fight. He will suddenly draw a mechanical rapid-fire crossbow. This specific combination of a colossal sword and a repeating crossbow perfectly replicates the signature fighting style of Guts, the protagonist of the manga. The Black Gull Knight fights exclusively with overwhelming physical strength, unbreakable poise, and relentless aggression, just like the way Guts fights. Upon its release, the Shadow of the Erdtree expansion achieved a rare milestone in the gaming industry. For nearly 8 years, the final addition to The Witcher 3, Blood and Wine, held the record as the highest-rated expansion in history. The journey into the Realm of Shadow eventually broke this record, officially becoming the most critically acclaimed expansion ever created. Rather than a simple addition, it functioned almost as a complete sequel. It introduced a dense, vertically layered map, completely new weapon class, and a massive journey that took average players dozens of hours to uncover. However, there was a fascinating divide during the first weekend of its release. While critics offered perfect scores, early player reviews were heavily mixed. The difficulty of the new realm was so deep that even veteran players were quickly defeated by standard enemies wandering the opening plains. This caused an unusual situation where the most celebrated expansion was simultaneously considered too punishing by its own community. The developers quickly introduced a minor update to adjust the mathematical scaling of the player's defensive blessings. This small change smoothed the difficulty curve, allowing players to finally experience the carefully crafted world without constant interruption. When starting a new journey in the Lands Between, many players seek a way to quickly gather runes to accelerate their growth. There is a specific method to achieve this by traveling deep into the wasteland of Caelid. In the region known as the Dragon Barrow, you will find Elder Dragon Greol. According to the lore, she is the mother of all ancient dragons. She is unimaginably massive, but she is completely grounded. She lies dormant on the earth, seemingly paralyzed by her own immense weight and the slow decay of the surrounding land. She is guarded by a flock of smaller, fiercely protective dragons that roar and attack anyone who approaches her head. However, her position contains a fatal blind spot. If you ride around the area to the nearby Fort Farith, you can safely approach the very end of her massive tail. From this position, she cannot reach you, and her children will not notice you. By repeatedly striking her tail with a weapon that causes blood loss, you can slowly hemorrhage her enormous health pool. She will not fight back. When her health finally depletes, she fades away, and her children instantly perish alongside her. This quiet, rather tragic execution rewards you with tens of thousands of runes, providing a massive advantage within the first few hours of your adventure. The reason Elder Dragon Greol does not fight back is deeply tied to the tragic history of Caelid. When Millennia unleashed the Rot during her battle with General Radahn, the curse infected the very soil of the region. Greol, being too massive to easily escape, absorbed a colossal amount of this decay. The Rot has eaten away at her physical strength from the inside out, leaving her paralyzed and entirely unable to lift her own tremendous weight. Because she cannot move her body, she relies entirely on her voice. When she is threatened, she unleashes a deafening, echoing roar. This sound magically weakens anyone standing in front of her and commands her smaller, healthier children to defend her. Her inability to swat you away from her tail is a tragic display of how decimating the Scarlet Rot is. When you explore the ruined village of the Albinaurics, you will face a boss known as the Omen Killer. He dual-wields heavy machetes and is immediately joined in the arena by two aggressive corrupted dogs. This encounter is a deliberate recreation of the Capra Demon boss fight from the original Dark Souls, which notoriously trapped players in a small space with the exact same combination of enemies. The abductor virgins found at the bottom of Raya Lucaria harbor a secret mechanic. If you allow the machine's mechanical arms to pull you inside its iron body, you are not simply killed. Instead, you are kidnapped and transported directly to the fiery depths of Volcano Manor. This is a direct mechanical homage to the Snatchers from Bloodborne, who would similarly abduct players and drag them to the unseen prison of Yahar'gul. The recurring character, Patches, makes his return in the Murkwater Cave. After you defeat him and he pleads for his life, choosing not to forgive him triggers a unique piece of dialogue. He states that this behavior simply isn't like you. This line quietly breaks the fourth wall, acknowledging the long shared history between the player and Patches across Demon Souls, Dark Souls, and Bloodborne, where he has always been spared to become a merchant. The catacombs scattered throughout the lands between operate on a very specific structural loop. You explore the dark corridors, avoid traps, and eventually pull a heavy mechanical lever to unlock the heavy doors leading to the boss. This blueprint was carried over entirely from the Chalice dungeons in Bloodborne, which relied on the exact same loop of exploration and lever pulling. In the Weeping Peninsula, you will meet a blind woman named Irina. She tells you that she's recently escaped from a ruined fortress called Castle Morn. This naming convention is a deeply layered reference to Dark Souls 3. In that game, players rescue a blind woman named Irina of Karim, who is actively guarded by a massive hostile knight wearing the armor of Morn. As you travel through the wild, you will eventually be invaded by a hostile non-player character named Anastasia, the Tarnished Eater. She aggressively attacks you wielding a massive butcher knife. She continues a very specific From Software tradition of including a cannibalistic woman armed with a heavy meat cleaver in the game, tracing all the way back to Meralda in Demon Souls and Man-Eater Mildred in Dark Souls. The visual design of the final boss arenas leans heavily on the studio's past work. When you face the Elden Beast, the arena is surrounded by towering, endless pillars stretching into the water. This is a direct visual recreation of the arc trees found in Ash Lake from the original Dark Souls. Similarly, the vibrant blooming flower field where you fight Millennia mirrors the beautiful, tragic final arenas found in both Bloodborne and Sekiro. The terrifying basilisks return in this game, lurking in the deepest, most rotting environments. Just like their previous incarnations in the Dark Souls trilogy, they exhale a dense cloud of lethal status effects. Also, keeping with tradition, the massive glowing yellow orbs on the top of their heads are entirely fake. If you look closely, their actual eyes are incredibly small and hidden just above their mouth. Deep underground, players are forced to climb inside empty stone coffins to safely ride down massive waterfalls of rot and water. Using a coffin as a bizarre mode of physical transportation is not new to this universe. It is a returning mechanic that was famously used to access secret hidden areas in both the first and second Dark Souls games. The Icon Shield, found in the Atlas Plateau, is a large wooden shield painted with a vibrant three-dimensional mural. Equipping it slowly restores your health over time. This is the third iteration of this specific item concept in the studio's history, acting as the direct spiritual successor to the Adjudicator Shield from Demon Souls and the Ethereal Oak Shield from Dark Souls 3. Toward the end of your journey, you commit the cardinal sin of burning the Erd Tree. Following this, your safe haven, the Round Table Hole, also catches fire. The environment fills with smoke, and many of the inhabitants leave or perish. This environmental shift reflects the burning of the hunter's dream at the end of Bloodborne, using the destruction of your only safe space to signal that the end of the world has finally arrived. When navigating the toxic swamps and shallow waters of the lands between, you will frequently encounter creatures known as land squirts. They resemble large fleshy eggs sitting motionless in the damp earth. If you step too close, they defend themselves by spewing a thick continuous cloud of poisonous mist. Fighting them with standard melee weapons can be tedious and dangerous, as it forces you to stand directly inside the toxic cloud. However, these creatures contain a fatal flaw. If you use a crafted item or a spell to intentionally apply the poison status effect to them, their bodies cannot process the excess toxin. The creature will rapidly swell in size and violently detonate from the inside out. This biological overload instantly kills them. Because land squirts naturally gather in tight, crowded clusters, poisoning just one of them will often trigger a massive chain reaction of explosions. It is a quiet, methodical way to clear an entire swamp without ever swinging your sword. The Royal Revenants are among the most aggressive enemies you will encounter. They are multi-limbed, screeching horrors that attack you with relentless, unpredictable speed, deliberately leaving you absolutely no time to drink from your flask and recover. However, if you cast an area of effect healing incantation in their presence, it completely turns the tide of the battle. The healing spell does not restore them. Instead, it instantly breaks their posture, throwing them to the ground and removing a massive portion of their health. This counterintuitive weakness is deeply rooted in their lore. The Revenants, alongside their bell-ringing followers, are fundamentally cursed creatures. They are unnatural, grafted amalgams of multiple bodies, completely severed from the natural order and the grace of the Earth Tree. Because their very existence is built upon corruption and a deep curse, the pure holy energy of a restorative spell acts as a lethal shock to their system. Their bodies forcefully reject the golden light, causing them to violently tear themselves apart from the inside out. Deep beneath the capital, at the very bottom of the subterranean shunning grounds, you will find a massive scarred stone door. A cryptic message nearby warns that only the wretched may enter. To open it, you must strip away all your armor and approach the door entirely unprotected. Opening this door brands your bare flesh with the mark of the 3 fingers. This forcefully locks you into the Lord of Frenzied Flame ending. If you sit at the nearby site of grace before opening it, Melina will appear to you quietly to beg you to turn back, warning that this path will only bring absolute destruction. While you are in this dark pit, you can also strike the altar in the corner to reveal an illusory wall. This reveals a long hidden descent that drops you directly into the deep-root depths. If you do inherit the flame but deeply regret your decision, there is exactly one way to reverse it: by tricking a frenzied enemy into destroying a makeshift tent nearby. By doing this, you can uncover a hidden note. It explains that the Empyrean Mikula crafted a needle specifically designed to ward off the influence of outer gods. To acquire Mikula's needle, you must complete a long and tragic journey. You must follow Millicent's quest line, starting with Gowry in the rotting swamps of Caelid, and ending by defeating Melania in the base of the Halleck tree. Once you have the needle, you cannot simply use it anywhere. You must travel to the floating ruins of Faramazula. After you defeat the Dragon Lord Placidusax, you can use the item within the Eye of the Storm, which is his arena. By doing this, you permanently sever your connection to the chaotic flame, freeing your fate from its control. To understand the true horror of the frenzied flame, one must look at how it physically anchored itself in the lands between. It was not always an active threat, but rather it was something that was summoned into the world through an act of unspeakable cruelty. The catalyst for this strategy was a man named Shabriri. He is described as the most reviled man in all of history. For the crime of supreme slander, the ruling class punished him by gouging out his eyes. In his empty sockets, the terrible sickness of the frenzied flame first took root. He became its initial human vessel, existing only to spread its madness. Shabriri directed his most devastating lie against the general caravan, the ancestors of the nomadic merchants you meet throughout the game. He convinced the Golden Order that these merchants were secretly worshipping heretical chaotic powers. The Golden Order responded without mercy. They rounded up the entire caravan and buried them alive in the pitch-black catacombs beneath Langdell. Trapped in the dark and slowly starving, the merchants fell into absolute despair. In their final moments, they began to play their stringed instruments and chanted a terrible unified curse against the world that buried them. This concentrated collective agony was so dense that it tore the veil of reality. Their suffering physically manifested the three fingers deep beneath the earth. The physical form of the three fingers is deeply symbolic. The Golden Order is guided by the two fingers representing division, life, and structure. The three fingers represent chaos and melting everything together. When combined, a 2 and a 3 make a complete hand with 5 fingers. This reflects the Frenzied Flame's core belief. Before the universe was divided, everything was completely unified as the one great. If you choose to accept their brand, your character ceases to be human. Your head is replaced by a raging ball of yellow fire. You become a walking cataclysm, destined to melt away all geography, all souls, and all history. It is an ending so thoroughly destructive that Melina, your closest companion, abandons you in disgust. If you proceed, she makes a final promise, but if you choose to burn the world, she will survive the ashes simply to hunt you down and deliver your death. Deep beneath the surface of the lands between, far removed from the golden light of the Erdtree, lie the quiet ruins of the Eternal Cities. These are the domains of Nokrin and Noxtella. These cities were built by a race of people known as the Nox. Long ago, the Nox lived above ground under the open sky. However, they committed an act of high treason against the greater will. Using the remains of a corpse, they forged the Finger Slayer Blade, a weapon specifically designed to harm the divine vassals of the Outer Gods. As punishment for this blasphemy, the Greater Will banished the entire civilization deep on the ground. They were permanently sealed beneath the earth, completely cut off from the warmth of the sun and the grace of the Golden Order. Deprived of the true sky, the Nox refused to live in absolute darkness. Through their deep understanding of sorcery, they created a false night sky. If you look up while wandering these cities, the cavern ceilings are covered in thousands of artificial glowing stars. It is a beautiful thing, but it's pretty sad when you understand the lore. In their exile, the Nox did not give up their ambitions. They began to experiment with a strange liquid silver substance, seeking to artificially engineer their own savior. They created the Silver Tears, shape-shifting entities of liquid metal, hoping to forge a perfect being capable of becoming the Lord of Night. Their ultimate creation was the Mimic Tear, an entity designed to perfectly replicate the strength and form of a champion. Yet the experiment was ultimately a failure. The Mimic Tear could copy a physical body, but it could never possess the soul of a true lord. Because of this, the Nox continued to wait in their cold, star-lit cities, forever anticipating an age of stars that they can no longer bring about themselves. During the battle with the divine beast Dancing Lion, players who attempted to heal themselves may notice the boss's health bar simultaneously increasing. This is a special mechanical punishment tied directly to the creature's grab attack. If the divine beast successfully catches you in its jaws, surviving the attack leaves your character afflicted with a distinct red aura. This temporary debuff fundamentally alters how your restorative items function. While this aura is active, drinking from a flask of Crimson Tears will still heal you, but it will also transfer a significant portion of that healing directly to the boss. The amount of health restored to the creature scales directly with the upgrade level of your flask. This mechanic weaponizes the player's natural instinct to immediately heal after taking massive damage. To avoid undoing your progress in the fight, you must either survive without healing for approximately 30 seconds until the debuff expires, or accept the penalty to restore your own health. Navigating the extreme vertical geography of the Realm of Shadow often requires the use of Spirit Springs to launch your spectral steed to higher elevations. However, you will occasionally encounter locations where a spring is clearly meant to exist, yet the air remains completely dormant. A quiet explanation for this anomaly is provided by the merchant Moore. He carries a document titled Note, Sealed Spirit Springs, which reveals that these specific wind currents have been physically bound by an external force and must be toppled to function. The intended method to unlock the path requires you to survey the immediate surrounding area. Hidden somewhere nearby, often tucked behind a ruined wall or a rocky outcropping, is a small glowing pile of stacked stones. This stone cairn serves as a lock. Striking it with any weapon shatters the seal, instantly causing the trapped air to erupt from the ground below. However, there is a mechanical exploit that allows you to bypass this search entirely. This method repurposes specific tools from the base game, Margit's Shackle or Morg's Shackle. These items were coded by the developers to emit a massive invisible wave of physical force across a wide radius. This wave was originally designed to safely remove or reveal illusory walls or trigger environmental traps from a distance. If you stand directly over the dominant spring and activate either shackle, this invisible shockwave expands through the surrounding terrain. The force will immediately strike the hidden stone pile, automatically shattering the seal. As you push toward the summit of Jagged Peak, you'll run into what many players consider one of the most frustrating bosses in the expansion, Ancient Dragon Senesax. At first glance, this fight feels like a bit of a copy-paste job, using the same movement as the ancient dragons from the base game. To make matters worse, she's stationed in a massive pool of water which turns her red lightning attacks into unavoidable high-voltage nukes that cover the entire arena. It's the kind of fight that makes you want to turn Torrent around and never look back. But there is a fascinating lore reason why this specific ancient dragon is hanging out in the heart of a territory ruled by her rivals. Throughout the DLC, we're told that Baal the Dread is a traitor who fought the Dragon Lord Placidusax, and that his drakes are lesser mutated versions of the true ancient dragons. So why is a true four-winged dragon like Senesax guarding the path for him? The answer is hidden in the item description of the hefty red lightning pot. The description reveals the truth. The ancient dragons who betrayed their lord to side with a tyrant were known for wielding branching red lightning. This confirms that Senesax was a turncoat. She betrayed her own kind and her lord, Placidusax, to side with the tyrant Baal. This adds a whole new layer to the fight besides fighting a reused boss. You are also fighting a traitor who abandoned the honor of the ancient dragons to join a failed rebellion. When exploring the ancient ruined forges scattered across the realm of shadow, you will frequently encounter smith script golems. These massive stone-crafted guardians are highly aggressive, forcing players to quickly target their exposed crystalline weak points to survive. However, within Taeli's ruined forge, there is a specific encounter that breaks this hostile pattern. In a quiet corner of the dungeon, a single golem stands entirely still. It does not patrol the area or immediately attack upon sight. Instead, it is focused entirely on a small group of fiery slug-like creatures known as lavateers. Rather than treating these creatures as pests, the towering stone giant watches over them as if they were cherished companions. If you approach carefully without drawing its attention, you can observe this quiet interaction. It is a rare moment of peace in a hostile environment, suggesting a lingering consciousness within the ancient guardian. This specific scene has resonated deeply with the player community. An unspoken rule has formed among many players to leave this particular golem unharmed. Within the dark catacombs of the Lands Between, you will occasionally encounter the Erdtree Burial Watchdogs. While fighting a single watchdog requires careful timing, being forced to face two of them simultaneously in a confined room is often an overwhelming challenge. However, there is a specific way that uses their artificial nature against them. A strategy, if you will. This method relies entirely on a small crafted item known as the crystal dart. These darts are chipped from artificial glintstone. When you throw approximately 5 of these darts directly into the body of a watchdog, the magic violently interferes with their magic, animating their stone frames. A distinct surge of blue sparks will erupt from the statue, signaling a complete internal short circuit. Once this occurs, the creature's targeting logic completely breaks down. It enters a frenzied state and becomes immediately hostile toward the nearest moving object, entirely ignoring its previous allegiance. If you trigger this state on one watchdog during a duo boss fight, it will immediately turn its blood against its partner. For roughly 30 seconds, the two statues will brutally attack each other, allowing you to stand safely at a distance and watch. The tailoring tools found in the land between allows players to alter their garments, a system that goes far beyond simple cosmetic changes. Modifying a piece of equipment fundamentally alters its priorities in 3 distinct ways. First, altering armor directly impacts its physical statistics. Removing a cape or heavy fabric will consistently lower the armor's defensive resistances, but it will also significantly reduce its overall weight. This provides a strategic method to slightly lower your equipment load, allowing you to maintain a faster dodge roll without completely changing your preferred armor set. Second, the alteration process can actively add or remove hidden passive abilities. For example, modifying the duelist cloak to its altered state physically reveals the reviled symbol of a snake. This actively draws enemy aggression toward the wearer, functioning exactly like the Shabriri's Wool talisman. Conversely, altering the black knife armor removes its translucent cape, which completely strips away the chest piece's unique stealth-enhancing properties. Finally, modifying armor often reveals entirely new pieces of lore. The altered items frequently feature different item descriptions that expand upon the game's history. The altered land of Reed's armor provides specific details about the distant region's brutal civil war. Similarly, removing the cape from Loretta's royal knight armor strips away the Carrion royal colors, and the text actively changes to detail her journey after she abandoned her position as a Carrion knight. This system ensures that even the simple act of tailoring clothes is tied directly to discovering the world's hidden narrative. Upon entering the gravesite plain, you will encounter a glowing golden cross standing in stark contrast to the desolate landscape. Each cross indicates a specific location where the Empyrean Mikela deliberately severed and abandoned a piece of himself. To shed his lineage and attain a new form of divinity, he systematically discarded his physical body and his emotional anchors. By examining the stone tablets resting at the base of these crosses, you can read the exact record of his sacrifices. The inscriptions document the loss of his flesh, his arm, his heart, and perhaps most concerning, his doubts. This narrative trail is permanently linked to your own survival. Almost every golden cross is accompanied by a Scadutree fragment. These fragments are strictly necessary to increase your offensive and defensive capabilities within the realm of shadow. By intertwining this crucial upgrade material with Mikela's discarded humanity, the game ensures that you cannot simply bypass his history. To gain the strength required to face the coming challenges, you are forced to retrace his exact steps and physically witness the terrifying cost of his ascension. Among the many spirit ashes you can collect in the lands between, Latena of the Albinoric operates differently from the rest. Because her physical legs are failing her, she cannot walk. When summoned, she's permanently rooted to the spot, acting as a stationary archer who fires a continuous stream of magic arrows. However, there is a hidden mechanic tied directly to her history. Before she joined you, she was deeply bonded with her royal direwolf companion, Lobo, who was killed while defending her. The game honors this connection through a highly specific environmental interaction. If you summon Latenna in the snowy regions of the map near a hostile riderless direwolf, her behavior completely changes. Instead of remaining still, she will actively charm the beast. She will then physically mount the wolf, instantly taming it. The direwolf will rush across the battlefield to attack enemies directly, while Latenna continuously fires her bow from its back. It is an incredibly rare interaction, but one that is definitely worth watching. In the royal capital of Leyndell, there is a huge stone statue of Lord Radagon. It stands alone on the elevated platform, written on the ground before it is a brief message left by a sculptor. The message states that regression alone reveals secrets. Many players pass this statue without understanding its purpose. However, it is a physical puzzle that hides the most strictly guarded secret of the Golden Order. To solve it, you must stand directly on the message and cast an incantation known as the Law of Regression. This specific spell is used by fundamentalists to dispel illusions and force objects to return to their original unaltered state. When you cast this magic in front of the stone figure, a visual transformation occurs. The rigid arms of Radagon lower, the posture shifts, and the monument smoothly changes into a statue of Queen Marika. A new message immediately appears on the ground, stating a simple truth: Radagon is Marika. When traveling across the lands between, you will frequently encounter massive trolls. They are often found in positions of servitude, pulling heavy carriages chained to posts or guarding minor outposts. If you look closely at their anatomy, every single troll shares a disturbing physical trait: a massive gaping cavity carved directly through the center of their chest. The trolls are the lesser descendants of the fire giants. The giants worshipped the Fell God, a deity whose physical visage was a massive glowing eye, which manifested directly on the fire chests of its followers. During the ancient war between the forces of the Erdtree and the fire giants, the trolls made a calculated decision to betray their own kind and fight alongside the Golden Order. To prove their loyalty to the Erdtree and permanently sever their connection to their ancient deity, the trolls physically tore the face of the Fell God out of their own chests. This horrific act of self-mutilation removed the god's influence, leaving them with the hollowed-out torsos you see today, like hollows from Bleach. However, the tragedy of the trolls lies in the aftermath of the war. Despite sacrificing their god and their kin to help establish the Golden Order, they were not rewarded with grace or nobility. Once the giants were defeated and the trolls were no longer needed as soldiers, the Golden Order immediately subjugated them. As you travel across the open plains of the lands between, you will inevitably hear the deep rhythmic trolling of a massive bell. This sound belongs to the wandering mausoleums, colossal four-legged stone structures that endlessly roam the environment. While they serve as a useful gameplay mechanic to duplicate your remembrances, their existence is rooted in a dark family secret. The mausoleums are moving tombs, and the bodies resting inside them belong to the soulless demigods. According to the phantom spirits wandering nearby, these bodies are the forgotten, unwanted children of Queen Marika. Because these children died without their souls, they were denied a proper burial at the root of the Erdtree. Instead, they were sealed inside these heavy stone cradles. The mausoleums are forced to walk endlessly, constantly moving to prevent the corrupted, death-infected roots of the earth from consuming the bodies inside. This tragedy extends directly to the soldiers who protect them. If you carefully observe the ghostly mausoleum knights patrolling the areas around these walking tombs, you will notice that every single one of them is missing their head. This is not battle damage. These loyal knights willingly decapitated themselves. When exploring the open expanse of the graveside plain, you will inevitably encounter members of the Forager Brood. Physically, these creatures are identical to the kindred of Rot, the heavily mutated centipede-like pests that relentlessly hunted players throughout the Scarlet Rot of Caelid. Because their base game counterparts are highly aggressive and capable of firing devastating homing threads, the immediate player instinct is to kill them on sight. However, the game deliberately weaponizes this conditioned response. Unlike the enemies in Caelid, the Forager brood in the Realm of Shadow are completely passive. They are gentle scavengers directly allied with the armored merchants Maw. If you suppress your combat instincts and simply walk up to them, you can safely interact with them. As a reward for your observation, they will give you a Forager brood cookbook. There are 7 of these manuals hidden throughout the map, and they are required to unlock critical crafting recipes, including the heavy damage heaving pots. Acting strictly on muscle memory carries a severe mechanical penalty. If you kill one of these passive foragers, the game tracks the action. Maw considers the brood his family and actively monitors their safety. If you harm them, his quest line abruptly breaks. He will shut down his shop, refuse to speak with you, and ultimately invade your world to kill you. It is a quiet test of observation, pushing players who allow past trauma to dictate their current action. If you wander just a bit north of the 3-path cross, you will find a small circle of haunted ruins guarding a glowing item on a coffin. This is the Backhand Blade. Did you know that the Backhand Blade features a unique looping animation that actually allows the running light attack to never truly stop? In almost every other weapon class in the game, when you perform a running attack, there is a recovery frame where your character has to reset their stance before they can start sprinting again. But with the Backhand Blades, the animation is hard-coded to chain directly back into the player's running cycle. It creates a seamless transition where you can slash through an enemy and keep your momentum without a single microsecond of lag. This obsession with flow is a recurring theme across the new weapon categories. You see it again with the light greatswords, like the melody you find in the Shadowkeep. These weapons feature a chain link system where light attacks flow into heavy attacks and entirely unique transitional animations. Usually if you hit R1 and then R2, the game just plays 2 separate animations back to back, but with this new bodies, the devs built bridge animations that make the character look like they're performing a continuous choreographed dance. I personally think this was the developers' way of addressing the clunkiness of the base game's combat. They didn't just add more damage, they re-engineered the way the character moves through space, making the Land of Shadow feel like a faster, more lethal version of the world we spent hundreds of hours in. While exploring the various ghouls scattered throughout the map, those creepy dungeons filled with jars and suspended cages, you might have stumbled upon one of the funniest community memes in the DLC. In the depths of Bellyrat Ghoul, there's a boss called Demi-Human Swordmaster Onze. But if you ask anyone on Reddit or YouTube, they'll tell you that's actually Master Yoda. He's a tiny, nimble demi-human who fights similar like a Jedi from the Star Wars prequels. He's constantly flipping through the air, teleporting in a flash of mist, and wielding a glowing blue sword called the Star-Lined Sword that looks suspiciously like a lightsaber. The resemblance is so uncanny that it's hard to believe it wasn't an intentional mod from Software. After spending the entire dungeon platforming across giant jars and avoiding jar innards that look like something out of a horror movie, walking into the boss fog and being greeted by a 3-foot-tall green guy doing 720-degree spinning mid-air slashes is a total wait, what? That moment. He even has a move where he floats and pulls you in with a magical grab, which the community has affectionately dubbed a force grab. The best part? If you manage to defeat him, you get his sword and a spirit ash for his apprentice, Yosh. While Elden Ring Shadow of the Erdtree became an instant hit and was being widely played, and it became the highest rated DLC ever, beating The Witcher 3 expansion Blood and Wine, did you know that after beating this record, CD Projekt Red posted on Twitter acknowledging the success of the DLC and how it just beat the Blood and Wine, which held the spot for the highest rated DLC for a very long time. The post featured Geralt slaying more, which is something I would have never guessed I would see, but it's cool as hell. It's cool. If Igon's relentless obsession with a giant monster felt familiar to you, that's because he is a massive walking reference to one of the most infamous characters in literature, Captain Ahab from Moby Dick. Just as Ahab was a sea captain consumed by a singular self-destructive mission to kill the great white whale that took his leg, Igon is a dragon hunter who has let his hatred for Baal the Dread become his entire personality. The parallels are everywhere once you look for them, from his shattered, useless legs that force him to crawl, to his refusal to let a little thing like total physical disability stop him from finishing his hunt. He's just looking for a trophy. He's looking for a cosmic settling of the score. The reference gets even more literal when you look at his weaponry. Most dragon hunters in Elden Ring use traditional katanas or lightning spells, but Igon uses harpoons. Specifically, he uses Igon's great bow to fire massive jagged bolts that are designed to pin a monster down. In the world of Moby Dick, Ahab's weapon of choice was the harpoon, and the imagery of Igon, a broken man desperately trying to harpoon a flying mountain of a dragon, is a direct nod to the high seas tragedy. Even his great harpoon item description hints at this obsession, making it clear that these aren't just arrows. They are tools of a man who sees Baal as his own personal great white whale. Based on the latest announcements as of early June 2026, Elden Ring Tarnished Edition is officially scheduled to release on August the 28th of 2026. This specific edition marks the game's highly anticipated debut on the Nintendo Switch 2. It was originally planned for a 2025 launch, but faced a significant delay. The development team at From Software required additional information and time to optimize the game's performance and ensure the massive open world ran smoothly on the new portable hardware. The Tarnished Edition serves as a comprehensive bundle. It packages the original 2022 base game directly with the Shadow of the Erdtree expansion. However, it also introduces an array of entirely new features to the game's mechanics and customization systems. 2 new starting classes to alter the early game experience, 4 new armor sets, each accompanied by a unique melee weapon, visual customization options for Torrent, allowing you to finally alter the appearance of your spectral steed. While this complete bundle is targeted at the Nintendo Switch 2 launch, the new content is not strictly exclusive. On the exact same day, August 28th, players on PlayStation, Xbox, and PC will be able to purchase the new classes, armor, and horse customization separately as a digital add-on officially titled the Tarnished Pack. The environmental weather system in the lands between are not merely visual dressing. They actively interfere with the mathematical calculations of the game's combat engine, specifically altering how elemental damage is processed. When a rainstorm occurs in a region, the atmospheric saturation fundamentally shifts elemental efficiency. Due to the water's conductivity, any lightning-based attack, weapon art, or incantation receives a flat 10% increase to its total damage output. Conversely, the damp environment actively suppresses flames, resulting in a strict 10% reduction to all fire-based damage. From a technical perspective, the game does not track physical raindrops making contact with a character model. Instead, the engine applies a blanket weather modifier to the entire regional cell. This creates a fascinating mechanical quirk. These elemental shifts remain fully active even if you and your enemy are fighting completely dry beneath a thick stone roof or inside a sheltered ruin. If the sky outside is raining, the numerical modifier applies to everything within the immediate zip code. This hidden mechanic has a profound impact on competitive player versus player combat. For years, the main academy gate in Liurnia of the Lakes has served as the community's primary arena for honorable duels. Because Liurnia's Pacific regional climate is heavily scripted to produce frequent rain, the environment inherently dictates the combat meta. A player utilizing a lightning build steps into this arena with a permanent structural advantage, while pyromancers are quietly penalized by the weather before the fight even begins. At the heart of the Academy of Raya Lucaria, Queen Renala is found clutching a glowing amber egg. She is entirely obsessed with it, using its power to continually rebirth her juvenile scholars. When Lord Radagon abruptly left Renala to return to the city and marry Queen Marika, he gifted her this amber egg. It secretly contains the great rune of the unborn. However, the process of rebirth offered by this rune is fundamentally flawed. The scholars Renala creates are born physically broken. They cannot walk, and their memories quickly fade. They are caught in a miserable, endless cycle of birth, rapid decay, and immediate birth. The political strategy behind this gift is devastating. Radagon and Marika are the same entity. By giving Renala the great rune of the unborn, the Golden Order ensured that the Carian royal family, the only military force ever to fight them to a standstill, would be permanently neutralized. The gift broke Renala's mind, leaving her utterly obsessed with the illusion of creating perfect children. She's completely abandoned her role as a military leader, allowing the Carian royal family to collapse without a single sword being drawn. During the Night of the Black Knives, a coordinated group of assassins infiltrated the capital and murdered Godwyn the Golden. The game initially presents this horrific event as a direct attack against the Golden Order, orchestrated entirely by Luna Princess Rani so she could shed her physical body and escape her fate. However, the descriptions of the assassin's equipment reveal a far more complicated political betrayal. If you examine the Black Knife armor set, the text explicitly states that the assassins were all women of the Newman race. This is the exact same rare extraterrestrial race that Queen Marika herself belongs to. Furthermore, the item description specifically notes that these women had close personal ties to Marika. This connection fundamentally changes the context of the assassination. The individuals who killed Marika's firstborn son were not unknown mercenaries of foreign agents. They were members of her own trusted inner circle. The hidden detail introduces a massive historical contradiction. It strongly suggests that Rani did not act alone. By placing Marika's closest confidants at the scene of the crime with stolen fragments of the Rune of Death, the game implies that Marika either secretly orchestrated the death of her own son to find an excuse to shatter the Elden Ring, or she suffered a devastating betrayal from the woman she trusted most. The truth is never explicitly confirmed, leaving the exact catalyst for the world's collapse buried in the history of a single armor set. From hidden mechanics and forgotten demigods to cosmic gods, cursed bloodlines, and ancient civilizations buried beneath the earth, Elden Ring is a game packed with more secrets than most players will ever uncover in a single playthrough. But perhaps the most impressive thing about Elden Ring isn't any individual boss, weapon, or piece of lore. It's the fact that after experiencing all of this, many players found themselves looking at other open-world games a little bit differently. The freedom, the exploration, the trust it places in the player, the way it turns discovery into its own reward. For a lot of people, Elden Ring became one of the greatest open-world games ever made, and they struggle to enjoy other open-world games the same way they did before. So make sure to check out the next video, Why Elden Ring Ruined Open World Games.